Hey guys, big show coming up this week on the Markcast. We have part 2 of our Law and Order meets alt football version of the Markcast. We are talking all the USFL declarations, Fox, going toe to toe with the real USFL. What does that all mean? We have a new trademark and IP lawyer, Tim Billick, joining the show to break all that down.
It's kind of curious to see how the plaintiff here is trying to set up, what they consider to be a use of their marks. I mean, it's black letter trademark law 101 that you only get your trademark rights if you're actually using the dang mark.
Then, the world is collapsing around the CFL fans. Are we moving to 4 downs? I guess we're doing this narrative again. Lots of other questions about CFL marketing or a drive to survive. Is that the way we need to go in terms of building new fan bases for the CFL? We have a longtime friend of the show, Jason Gregor, coming back on.
Randy Ambrosi, he can talk about it all he wants. The CFL needs to focus on what they do well and what's exciting about their game. The assumption that 4-down football is automatically more exciting is based on what?
And then we're rounding out your coverage with a couple player interviews. We have Solomon Wise of the USFL Philadelphia Stars.
It just means a lot. It means a lot. It means a lot that this organization in the league was looking at me as one of, a linebacker so they can premiere. It's very humbling.
And Andrew Peirson of America's CFL team, the BC Lions, stopping by the program.
The thing about this sport is it's not forgiving, and you have a couple bad days or anything like that, you never know what could happen. So I want to leave every day knowing that I gave my best, control what I control, and in all aspects representing the BC Lions, in the community, anything like that. I want to know that while I've had this opportunity, I want to fulfill everything I can do every single day.
Plus, we have Major League Football news this week. The USFL has announced all of their coaching staffs. Lots of fun things to talk about. Lots of fun things to ruminate about. Hope you guys enjoy the show. Please like and subscribe. Check us out on your podcast platform of choice. And thanks for watching. Hey everybody, Reed here. Welcome to the Markcast. Hope you all had a wonderful St. Patty's Day, coming to you nice and early on a Friday morning. Hope the festivities didn't get too out of hand last night. Thank you so much for joining today. Lots of work emails sent out this week. I joked on Twitter, I've probably sent out about 8,700 emails, give or take, trying to set up everything for you this week. I think we got a really good show. I hope you enjoy. Please like and subscribe if you appreciate the work that we're doing. So close to 1,900 subscribers. I want to hit 2,000 by the time we go to Birmingham next month for the USFL kickoff. Remember, we have our Royal Retros jersey that we're giving away. They'll custom make whatever alt football jersey you want. Send it right to your door. I have a AAF jersey as well that we're auctioning off as part of the raffle. Bunch of Grey Cup stuff. Going to be a lot. So like and subscribe if you appreciate the work. Lots of emails, phone calls and DMs this week, setting up the show. Coming up on the show today, tremendous lineup. We have 4 guests. We're going to get you all covered with your USFL, CFL stuff. We have some MLFB, Major League Football news coming out as well. We are first and foremost talking all about the USFL lawsuit stuff. We're continuing down this road. There were declarations in court this week. They had the Zoom meeting, the real USFL and the Fox-owned USFL last week. Declarations to the court this week. What did they talk about? We are bringing in a new trademark and IP expert to help us kind of wade our way through all this. We have Tim Billick. Tim is a local lawyer. He is joining us remotely from his work vacation in Mexico. Never doubt the work and time that all of our guests are putting in to share their expertise on the podcast. Tim went to the University of Washington Law School, which is going to sit well with Dorothy. And this is all Tim does. Tim specializes in trademark IP stuff. So Tim is a great guy to have on the show. Really excited to hear what Tim has to say. Again, I set these up with the experts, and then I'm curious to find out what they say along with you. I don't try to find anyone that's going to side with me or side with whoever. I bring in experts that can help fill us in and kind of give us more color, information to kind of wade through all this. Then, a lot of news coming out with the CFL this week. It's been a little sleepy. Randy Ambrosie, commissioner of the league, is making a road trip, because that is what we do in the CFL. He's in Calgary right now, talking a lot about Genius Sports, the new data, marketing, analytics, that whole firm that's coming out, to work with the CFL to try to grow and attract new viewers. Arash Madani, not so friend of the show, was on Rod Peterson's show this week, was talking about how part of the talks with Randy and Genius Sports has centered around potentially moving to 4 downs. Remember, we talked all about that back Grey Cup week and that when we had Dave Naylor and Farhan on the show. Farhan's going to be on next week. Excited to catch up with Farhan as well. But they came out, they're talking about 4 downs again, that Randy's meeting with the team leaders and all that. So I'm really curious to get Jason Gregor's thoughts on that. Jason Gregor is going to be on the show, TSN 1260. Also talking with Jason about, growing the game in general. What does the CFL need to do? The drive to survive, right? The F1 show. Randy Ambrosie has talked a lot about doing something similar for the CFL. Is that a good idea? What does Jason think? Jason also gives a little thoughts about the USFL as well. Really excited to get Jason back on the show. Then we have from the USFL Philadelphia Stars, Solomon Wise. Solomon was drafted in the first part of the USFL draft. He is a defensive player. He's literally packing his bags, getting ready to go to Birmingham. Really excited to check in with Solomon and hear his story, right? All these guys are working and weighing their options. Do we want to go to the USFL? Do we want to hold out? What do we want to do? Try to get into do a pro day and get into a practice squad. So really, it was great catching up with Solomon. We're cheering on Philadelphia Stars. I got my hat on backwards. That's my team. So really excited for that. And then we have Andrew Peirson, courtesy of the BC Lions. Andrew, hot takes coming in off of seeing the Batman. Was excited to hear Andrew is going to the movies, bonding with his teammates in the off season, getting ready for the 2022 CFL season. Andrew talks a lot about Henry Burris as well, getting signed on as a kind of an offensive consultant for the BC Lions, and then Nathan Rourke as well. He gives some thoughts about Nathan Rourke and all of that. So tremendous show. We have Tim Billick, we have Jason Gregor, we have Solomon Wise, and then we have Andrew Peirson coming on. Please like and subscribe. I'm going to check back in with you guys after Tim and Jason's interviews. We have a little MLFB news. They've announced their first head coach, and then the USFL has released all of their coaching staffs for the 2022 season ahead of training camps next week. Thanks. Jumping into this crazy world of the USFL lawsuit, I appreciate you, Michael Cohen, our normal Beverly Hills IP lawyer. I don't know if he's off in the Bahamas or something, but you are vacationing in Mexico, have come on today, tag team. And Tim, how are you doing?
Doing great. Another day in paradise, and I'm super excited to talk about some entertainment law issues and some trademark issues.
I'm excited. So Tim's researched the case. I want to get your thoughts, and then I want to obviously update, my dumb self trying to read through this stuff. I think I know what's going on, but I want to make sure. So first off, general thoughts just of this real USFL versus Fox USFL case.
Yeah. So general thoughts. It's kind of curious to see how the plaintiff here is trying to set up, what they consider to be a use of their marks. I mean, it's black letter trademark law 101 that you only get your trademark rights if you're actually using the dang mark. And so I can sort of see, Fox's position on this, that they're like, well, what the heck? I thought the USFL has been dead for a while. So that was sort of my initial impression upon reading the complaint was, whoa, okay, all right, I guess they're still around. And then on the flip side of things, I'm a lawyer, we got to know all sides here, right? So on the flip side of things, what was very, interesting was the fact that the Fox was just unapologetic about saying, yup, this used to be a thing, and we're going to remake it a new thing. And we're not even going to try to gussy it up as something different or something new. Like, they are unabashedly, hearkening back to the good old days of the USFL. So that was sort of my initial sort of push and pull on this case about reading the complaint. And just as we're taping this today, there hasn't been an answer filed officially in court, so we don't really know Fox's official position just yet.
Yeah, and it seems like, all this came out. It's so weird to me. We talked about this back in May when the whole thing came out, and we interviewed Steve Earhart, who is, currently the still longstanding president of the original league. He was blindsided. Everybody felt very blindsided by this. It's interesting that it's taken this long to kind of come to fruition. I mean, you can see the timing of this, right? The league is kicking off, a month from yesterday, whenever we recorded this. It's. Do you find in times when there's questions surrounding IP and trademark stuff, you try to go for a good timing, right? Like let's factor this a month before and kind of maybe try to upset things a little bit?
So timing's critical, and there's obviously a lot of factors that go into it, right? I have no idea when counsel for the plaintiff here for Real USFL, I have no idea when they were contacted to actually do this thing. Sometimes you got a client freaking out last minute, and they say, "Oh my gosh, this thing is happening," and then you're the lawyer going, "Oh crap, okay, I guess there goes my plans." So it could be, they just found out about it. And then that's why, boom, they're timing it in February, the timing of the complaint, for February filing. But the argument against someone who is trying to stop you from doing something is, if I'm the defendant, I say, well, what the hell? You guys waited too long. If this was such an emergency, and if you knew about what was going on with the resurgence of the USFL by Fox, why did it take you until February to actually seek relief from a court? So, but the timing on this particular case isn't so outlandish to me, based on my experience. At least according to the allegations in the complaint, it appears that there is some sort of back and forth correspondence. Both sets of lawyers on the other side were basically pounding their chest back and forth at each other for a bit, which is pretty typical. Before you go with the nuclear option of filing a complaint in federal court, you send letters back and forth and say, oh, yeah. So, but at some point, you have to pull the trigger, and you have to go to court if you're fairly confident that you're not going to get anywhere with the folks on the other side. So the timing of this, I don't see this as that outlandish. I see this as, okay, they tried to work things out, and then they couldn't, and then boom, here we are. They filed this complaint, just a couple months before the scheduled launch date. So it'll be interesting to see, as the briefing schedule progresses, how quickly they'll actually be able to, one, get in front of the judge to actually look at their motion papers, and two, get a decision out of the judge on this. There's all sorts of ways you can try to, scream at the top of your lungs at the judge, metaphorically speaking. But if the judge has got a docket too, and you got to remember that a federal court, they're hearing criminal matters, they're hearing stuff from all over the place. So it'll be interesting to see if we'll get any sort of movement on the case before the actual launch date. My gut tells me it's unlikely. So my gut tells me that, from what I see in this complaint so far, and what was listed as the correspondence back and forth, I would be very surprised, based on my experience, if Fox goes, oh shucks, you're right, we should put a stop to this entire machine that we've already put in motion, unless the court tells them to,
Yeah, right. An injunction would be right. Because that's, I think, what people are fearing. And I want to get into the events of kind of this week, but that's what people are fearing would be the nuclear option, would be a judge saying, you got to wait, you got to change the names, you can't use these marks, right, headed into the kickoff.
Right. That would be extremely surprising, because under the law, when you are seeking an injunction, when you're seeking an injunction before the court in a civil matter, there's a number of factors that you have to prove up, and you have to, show the judge. One of the factors is the plaintiff's likelihood of prevailing on the merits, and it's just a likelihood of prevailing. Like, you don't have to prove your entire case right out of the gate, but you have to say, look, we think the evidence will show yada, yada, yada. Second factor is a showing of irreparable injury to the plaintiff if the court doesn't do something. So here, I think, the plaintiff here is going to have a tough time demonstrating irreparable injury. And I can get into that if you like. But the other two factors that you look at when you're seeking an injunction that you have to prove up to the court is the third factor is the threatened injury to the plaintiff sort of outweighs the damage that would result to the defendant, the opposing party. So, and then the fourth factor is it's kind of a catch-all. It's kind of a mushy, amorphous balance of equities, or, just as the court deems just or whatever. So the court can look at a lot of different things. But when someone's moving for an injunction, high level, the court is going to look at, all right, if I don't do something, how is the plaintiff going to get hurt? If I do something, how is the defendant or the non-movement going to get hurt in this? So, we can talk about how this might shake out, given what we know about the case so far. But it's, if I'm going to make a prediction, I'll just say that, I would be very surprised if the court actually issues an injunction telling Fox to stop what it's doing right now in the league.
I have some follow-up questions for that too. So they, we filed everything. They had set the dates. There was this weird order of events where the court rulings weren't, the judge hadn't declared whatever the rules of the court. So then they go back. So then we do all this. So then it seemed like they had them. They had a Zoom meeting. The judge requested them to have another Zoom meeting. Right. This was all to try to not waste the court's time. Right. Like, if you guys can figure this out, are we reading that right?
Yeah, that's a pretty accurate summary. Yeah, and I got a bit of a chuckle out of it. Reading some of the orders and reading just some of the timeline basically of the case, and especially so this was filed in the Central District of California, and every court, every court has to follow the federal rules, right? And then every court is allowed to make sort of their own particular practices, their own particular rules. So this judge in this court, they put a lot of stock in, what's called a meet and confer, which is basically, hey, call up the other guy, chat about the motion before you, just like you said, before you come running the court, you guys got to demonstrate that you actually really attempted to resolve some of these issues. So yeah, what happened was the plaintiff here was all hot to trot, really pissed off about the situation, filed their motion for injunction. And yeah, the court was like, whoa, wait a minute. You guys got to go talk about this and try to play nice before you come to the court. And I thought it was kind of funny because you're the plaintiff and you're going, oh my gosh, the sky is falling. Please, court, help me. And then you go to the court and they're like, nah, you guys go talk it over a little bit more. So I sort of feel for the plaintiff's frustration here. At least in that capacity. And then, so they're ordered to have another chat. And this judge is taking this seriously. And the judge is saying, you guys go try to come up with some resolution. Even if you don't solve everything, I want you guys to try to agree to certain things, just so we don't have a mountain of papers and a mountain of briefing that the court, let's be real. Most of the time it's the clerks doing a substantial part of the work for this. And so look, guys, figure this out, streamline the issues, then come back. So that's kind of where the case sits at the moment is they filed, and this is pretty funny because they filed their moving papers already. So we already have kind of a general sense of what they're getting after, what they're alleging. But again, the judge is like, yeah, I'm not even going to look at it yet. So go figure it out.
So then a lot was made, we were all anxiously waiting because, they were supposed to meet Friday. And then the court seemed like the court website was down. I was trying to refresh all this stuff. So then Monday night, everything comes out and a lot was made. Fox had a 22-page response, right, detailing all this stuff. They said that it was going to hurt them, but we have this whole league and we've hired all these people. And it really seemed like Fox kind of just wiped the floor, right? And they said this and it didn't matter. And they said this, they brought up these cases and it didn't have anything to do with each other. And it seemed like from the real USFL side, they had a 5-page thing where it was yes, we talked and da-da-da-da-da. It really did seem like David versus Goliath there. Are we reading that right? Kind of how it appears?
It's maybe a smaller Goliath versus a bigger Goliath, So because the USFL, they're not pinching pennies together. They've got resources. If they if the USFL is making as much royalties as they are suggesting in this, then they're doing okay. But I agree with you that Fox's declaration, one of their attorneys' declaration, was very exacting, very just boom, 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 and that's not by accident. Right. In court, you want to come across to the judge as early and often as possible that, look, judge, I got my shit together. Right. And you want to come across that, look, I'm doing my damnedest to comply with your local rules. These other yahoos only filed something that was 5 pages long and it doesn't really comply with the rules. And so it's a little bit of posturing, maybe a lot of bit of posturing on the part of Fox. But it's a proper tactic to use. I would do the same thing. And it's showing, and it's demonstrating to the court as early and as clear as possible what your theory of the case is going to be. If nothing else, when you're in court and you're trying to win, you need to have a good story. The law and the facts are helpful. But God damn it, you better have a good theme. You better have a good story. And part of being a good storyteller is repetition. And, if you can start to tell your story as early as you can, that's just going to help you down the road, because the judge will be like, oh yeah, I remember reading about this sort of thing earlier on in the case. So, I thought I was a bit, kind of surprised, and I pulled up that declaration. I was like, oh gosh, okay. But then I thought about it. I'm like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I would, if I had a client that would pay for it, I would do the same thing.
Well, and that client, right, is Fox and Fox Sports. And right.
Money's not a thing for them.
And I don't know. I think the real USFL is projecting, and I think in the declaration, the Fox one, they were talking $500 a quarter or whatever royalties, or $5,000. It's not, I think they're trying to, real USFL is trying to pretend like there's a lot more money at stake here for them than maybe there actually is.
Probably.
Where you talk about, causing an injunction, right? Bringing that about is showing damages, right? And Fox is saying, we have an entire league where we've hired people and rented a stadium and have staff and have all this stuff. And, we're worried about their T-shirt sales, right? It's not the same thing.
Right.
It's not
exactly right. Yeah. You got right to the heart of the matter is, a big theme of briefing and injunction is, what's going to be the balance of harms. Right. And so, yeah, you hit it right in the nail on the head. Like on the plaintiff, it's kind of tough to sell a sob story of, oh, woe is me, I'm going to lose out potentially on T-shirt sales. And we can get into the nitty gritty about the facts around the T-shirt sales, which is a weird sort of allegation they made. But, oh, woe is me, I'm going to lose out in T-shirt sales and my brand's going to be tarnished, potentially, versus Fox is like, look, these are abandoned marks. This public domain, my friend, And, we've started this entire machine in place, and we've got, players, leagues, everything. And it would just be pretty ridiculous to shut down this whole thing for the sake of this, the holder of these what we believe to be dead marks. So, that's why I'm like, injunction, going to be a bit of a stretch. But what happens a lot of time in these trademark cases is, and I've been on both sides of this kind of issue in trademark litigation. If you're the plaintiff and you are saying, oh my gosh, these jerks are really harming me and harming my brand, it behooves you to at least try to move for an injunction, because later on in the case, when you're trying to prove up your damages as the plaintiff, the defendant on the other side is going to be like, what damages? You guys didn't even try to move for an injunction. Like, how is this really harming you guys? So I understand the plaintiff's point of view and the plaintiff's tactic on this, that like, okay, we have to move for an injunction, just because if we don't, it's just going to look bad. So otherwise, if you don't move for an injunction, it kind of looks like you're a troll, and you're just being a jerk and trying to extract a settlement. So, so while I'm not terribly confident that they're going to prevail on this preliminary injunction, I absolutely understand why they moved for it. So there you have it.
It's interesting, and I wanted to get we'll talk the shirts here, because a lot's been made. This is because they don't have that many arguments, right? The real USFL. I guess if Fox went back, because they've sent cease and desist to write to like American Apparel or whatever they were making the shirts. If Fox went back and like, okay, you can do that, we're not going to stop you. You could almost argue that Fox is helping the real USFL in terms of raising the brand, recognition.
100%. Yeah, that is an argument that would be made in all this, and that's going to be extremely relevant for purposes of the injunction. It's still relevant, but it's less important when you actually get towards, as you advance in the case, when you're trying to prove up your damages, because under the law, if you are a trademark holder, you still have the right to control how your brand is used. Right. And so if you're saying, look, we are helping you, you can say, yeah, you're helping me, but like, I'm not the one getting paid on it. So, what makes sense out of this, frankly, is a settlement. That's what makes economic sense, I guess. But, again, Fox has unlimited resources. So, I think they're going to they will be hard pressed to settle. So, but yeah, for purposes of the injunction, if I'm Fox, I'm going to say, what harm? Like, nobody cared about the USFL until we started doing this again. So, you guys are kind of full of it.
But I understand that. That's the whole crux of everything, though, is like, if it mattered enough to call it the USFL and do it. The past does matter enough. I get where they're coming from. So the T-shirt thing, I want to hear about whatever you said, nitty gritty. You had thoughts about the T-shirts, and I think I might know what you're talking about, but fill us in.
Sure. So under the complaint, they're talking about the T-shirt sales, and let me just pull it up so I'm not going from memory here. So they talk about, like, the good old days of when the league first started, and blah 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 blah. So they basically say that beginning around 2011, like late 2011, November 2011 or so, they were selling these shirts, and I'm thinking, all right, that's all fine and good, but under the law, there's a presumption that you abandon your trademark after a period of non-use of 3 years. So that's the presumption. You can overcome that, but yeah. So like, here we are in 2022. If as the plaintiff, if you had facts that show recent use of the marks, you'd put that in the complaint. You would say, look, we're still around. So the only evidence that I was able to see of actual use of the mark recently was, let's see, we had T-shirt sales in 2011, and he says that that Steve Earhart, or excuse me, the USFL, care of Steve Earhart, was collecting royalties every quarter since 2011. But they don't say that like these shirts are still being listed for sale. And then what I thought was kind of curious in the complaint was demand for the USFL apparel has remained steady. And American Classics has made regular quarterly payments to the USFL, blah, 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 through the fourth quarter of 2021. So, but again, like that doesn't completely string the theory of use together, right? Royalty payments presumably are in connection with sales, but why didn't they just come right out and say, look, we've been selling these things since 2011. So, and some of the sites they use to show evidence of use go to they go to Internet Archive Wayback Machine sites. So not a good look. If you're trying to say that your mark is still relevant, it's not a great look. And we do have somewhat more recent. We have some other, not more recent. We have other evidence of use. Talking about licensing the name for filmmakers and things like that. But again, this is all the film stuff was 2008, 2009. I think the only thing that might be the most relevant is this book licensing deal that they talk about in the complaint. And but they say that, look, they're just kind of in talks. They had the discussions over the book. And there was a written release for someone else to write about the USFL. Now that's a license. That's a license of the name, but is that going to be enough to demonstrate trademark use? Now, we'd have to get into the merits as to whether or not that would be sufficient to demonstrate non-use and abandonment. But the point is if this is the best evidence that they have about showing use of the mark, then it's going to be a tough road to hoe for them. And if I'm Fox on the other side, my job as a Fox lawyer is to try to blow up all these instances of the supposed instances of use. So and I guess the book ultimately published in 2017. Now, so again, we can get more into the merits as to whether or not allowing someone to write about the league and allowing someone to put your name on a shirt and allowing someone to talk about the film, is that going to be sufficient to demonstrate trademark use? That's going to be sort of the salient question in this case as it sort of moves forward.
I thought it was interesting just to finalize the T-shirt thing. A lot's been made, and we have there's a Royal Retros too. That's another company that makes, and he does all sorts of shirts and stuff. And I know that they've had discussions ongoing too, where they basically said like the selling the shirts is more just like the ornamental like logo, like it's not necessarily using the trademarks even. It's like, and I think it's odd that on the new USFL on their website, the new league, all the hats and stuff are just the names of everything. Like it's weird how they use everything and use the logos and don't use the logos. And like even the new USFL hats like don't have USFL on them. They just say like Houston Gamblers or whatever. I mean, it's just weird how they're kind of going about it, and sometimes we're using it. And anyway, I mean, I think that's a deep dive for a different discussion, but you know, it's interesting that so few demand of sales, right, that they were talking about. I think it was 500 a quarter. I can't remember if it was 500 or 5,000, but like it was a very low amount of money per quarter to be used as like demonstrating, you know, demand for this product when Fox is committing $50 million a year, you know, to doing this league in Birmingham. You know what I mean? It's a little different.
Right. So, I mean, as far as the volume of sales, the volume just, you know, this setting aside how they're using it, the volume alone, you know, might be enough to kind of just get them over the hump. Because it's still, you know, if we get past the step of, okay, this is genuine trademark use, the volume of it, sure, pales in comparison. But it still could be ruled as enough to say, look, okay, yeah, all right, these are genuine uses. And yeah, that's enough use. It's not like one here, one there, whatever. You know, again, even though it might pale in comparison, it's still, you know, more than zero, basically. So yeah, I had a case a while back where there was a brand that was just barely kind of puttering along and for a while, and someone else came by and scooped up the brand and tried to do basically a resurgence. And we were suing a completely different company, someone that didn't have rights in the marks that we were asserting, completely different company, but using a mark that was confusingly similar. And so they argued, whoa, you were a brand back from the 80s. Where the hell did you guys come from? We thought you were abandoned. And to get us to trial, we didn't win on this argument because, well, we ended up settling the case, but we ended up surviving towards trial by arguing that, look, there were some sales that were floating around during this you know, lull period that they are calling the abandonment period. Like, no, we weren't completely gone. We had some sales here and there. There was a couple of stores that still carried the product on its shelves, blah, blah, blah. It wasn't a ton, but it was enough to convince the judge to be like, you know what, I'm willing to let these facts go to a jury, and I'm willing to let a jury make the final call on this. So again, this wasn't a final decision on the merits, but we were able to survive to the trial stage based on an argument that we still kind of had sales floating around here. And for the plaintiff here, that might be enough. You know, they might just be looking for, I mean, they're most likely looking for a paycheck out of this.
Sounds eerily similar. Sounds eerily similar to that.
Yeah, no, I had this case. This was when, I think it was back in like 2015 or so. This is fairly early on in my practice. And yeah, we had an abandonment issue that caught a lot of attention in Seattle. Yeah.
You have to tell me how fair. So Tim and I have just spent about 20 minutes off camera trying to do the math and figure this out, because it's not clear cut. So for people watching, for us common folk out there, we're trying to figure out, you know, April 16th is the USFL kickoff. I mean, when the heck is all this going to be figured out?
So when the heck this is going to be figured out is largely going to be dependent upon the court. So what we're going to see today, March 17th, is hopefully a renewed filing from the plaintiff for a preliminary injunction, because it seems like these guys actually, you know, did the meet and confer that was required. So on March 17th, we should be getting some papers from the plaintiff on a preliminary injunction. And then when they set in their papers, when they file their papers, they have to get a hearing date from the court. And then 28 days backwards from that hearing date, the defense, Fox, is going to file their response. And then 14 days backwards from that hearing date, we're going to get a reply from the plaintiff that goes against the response from Fox. So from there, we'll get a hearing from the court, probably going to be like a month out or so. And then the court could decide right then and there, look, I've read all the briefing, I've read everything, I'm going to rule this way. Or the court is going to say, I'm going to take this under advisement and I'm going to, take some more time before I issue a ruling. And so the short answer is it's at least going to be a month out before we get a decision. And it could be much longer than that before we actually get a ruling from the court on the injunction issue. And again, this is like, let's take a step back here. This is still really early on in the case, right? So this case was just filed. So this is all, it's a preliminary injunction. After we get a ruling from the court, 14 days after that court ruling, whenever it happens, we will get an answer from the defendants addressing what was actually contained in that complaint. So this process is kind of long and arduous, but that's sort of the rough timeline that we're looking at as we sit here today.
Yeah, I mean, we could be crowning a USFL champion by the time this all comes about,
easy.
Yeah, easy.
Easily. Yeah, without question. And like I said earlier, the courts are busy and they've got a lot of stuff going on. And so whenever you go to court, you got to be prepared for the real possibility that the federal judge is going to be hearing other matters before they get around to yours. So that's just kind of how it shakes out.
Well, Tim, I'm going to let you get busy back with your work vacation. I appreciate you so much taking the time today. We'll keep you, here and we'll figure it out in our Rolodex of smart people to talk to you about stuff. So I really appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. It was a lot of fun digging into this. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Well, I'm so glad today we have Jason Gregor back on the show. It's been a long time. I think a lot in the world has happened. We have new football leagues now since I think the last time we've had you on, the CFL had a Grey Cup. How are you doing today?
I'm good, man. Good to be back. How are you?
I'm good. And I want to get into, we end up having a lot of CFL stuff this week. I want to talk a little USFL at the end as well. But, the world exploded yesterday. We're talking CFL, 4 downs again. And I want to talk to Genius Sports as well. But what is your take on that and the CFL adopting the game potentially?
Well, you know what? I think the CFL, Randy Ambrosi, he can talk about it all he wants. The CFL needs to focus on what they do well and what's exciting about their game. The assumption that 4-down football is automatically more exciting is based on what? Right? Like, you show me what it's based on. Now, they're obviously in 3 downs. I get the math, right? There's more chance of punts. Okay, that's valid. Doesn't mean it's always that way. So when I look at having 4 downs, it's going to mean you're likely going to have longer drives and fewer possession changes, right? That's what it's going to mean, right? Does it guarantee that you're going to have way more points? I got to see it to believe it in the CFL, right? It's a different game. Like if you're playing 4-down football now on the wider field, that's going to be even harder to defend. I don't think there's any question about that, right? So you can't just say, well, 4 downs is going to be the same in the CFL field as it is on NFL field. The dimensions are significantly different. And I don't like the CFL has to be prideful in what they do well. I think CFL has a bigger marketing issue than they have about what's on the field at times. I also think the CFL could do a better job when it comes to, the last year. Now, maybe that was due to COVID and whatever, but the last season, defense dominated. And at any time when defense dominates, your product isn't as good, right? In the regular season. Playoffs are totally different. People in the playoffs, you're so emotionally charged. The game could be 1-0 and people be fired up. Doesn't matter. But I'm talking regular season, which is the majority of your games.
Yeah, I just don't get. I said before when this came up, this all came out Grey Cup week. Like, of course, hey, Genius Sports and all this movement. I think the CFL, the issues they have, it's not trying to be this imitation of the NFL, right? I mean, I think that the whole idea is, we live on this, we exist on this different plane, we exist in these different rule sets. People like our game, and I see already on Twitter now, like, I'm not a football fan. I'm a CFL fan. This is what I want. And it's really weird that people look at it that way.
Well, so you're always going to have different opinions, right? I think we always have to be cognizant that a Twitter opinion doesn't speak for the masses, right? There's a small percentage of us who actually have Twitter when you look at it in the grand scheme of things. And you're going to find some people who love the CFL, some people who hate the CFL, some people who love both the CFL and the NFL, and some who love the NFL. I'm kind of past the point of having a conversation with anyone who's like, oh, the CFL is below me, or I only like the NFL. I'm like, great, like the NFL. I'm not trying to change your opinion. I really don't care. Like, I think it's an ignorant opinion. My personal view on it, the games are different. The leagues are different. There's different strengths to them. The CFL needs to focus on the CFL. That's what they need to do. They stop worrying about other football leagues. Like, what about who cares about the USFL? Have they been around for 100 years? Like, you can look and say, hey, now what are the possible concerns of the new football, the USFL? Well, it might mean some American players maybe don't come to the CFL. After that, does it have any bearing on your TV numbers in Canada? No. Is it going to have any real bearing on your TV numbers in the US? No. So really, how is it impacting your team? There's a potential of losing a few players, but there's not a shortage of football players. Now, there's a shortage of quality quarterbacks, right? That's the one thing. But, I got to see a league last for 5 years before I would be very concerned about it. And that's not a knock on any of the leagues, but if the league comes up and has a year and you've focused all this energy on worrying about it and, what are we going to do different? And then the league folds. Well, now you just wasted a bunch of time. So to me, the CFL needs to focus on what they need to do to get younger fans in the stands. Point blank. That's what you have to do. And I don't think you have to cater to necessarily just changing the rules. There's lots of ways that they need to engage better. Engage better with your younger fan base has to be the main priority of the CFL.
I just don't get, Randy came out, the big press conference. Okay, we have Genius Sports now. We're going to, and then now he's on his big media tour. We're going to use the analytics, right? The Genius, like we're going to be able to better target and market, right? Like our message to people. And I just don't get I don't know. I think a lot of people that don't watch the CFL, like you said, are people that think it's below them or isn't cool, right? And that's whatever we can say about them. But I don't know. Knowing better the age to reach people at is going to help. You know what I mean? Like, I don't get what Genius is going to give them in terms of like the analytics that, we can better focus they don't run Instagram ads. They don't run Twitter ads. They don't run TikTok ads. Like, I don't know what they're going to use that for.
I'm with you, man. I don't, I look at the new president in Edmonton, Victor Cui. Victor Cui is he's going basically on a grassroots. He's going to do different things. The number one thing he's probably going to do is he's going to make the tickets more affordable. Now, season ticket holders, they're the diehards. They want the best seats. They're going to pay for their tickets. And they're not as a season ticket holder in other sports, I don't care if I'm paying $80 for my seat, and now somebody can go sit in the second deck and only pay $15. That doesn't impact my life at all. I'm not going to be like, well, I should pay less. No, I paid $80 because I want to sit in the lower bowl. I want to sit at the 40-yard line. I have no problem with it. But I'm probably actually, if I'm a fan, I want to have more people in the building. It creates a better atmosphere. And so if that means younger people, when I was a teenager or if I was a young adult, I didn't have the same money I had in my 40s. That's just a fact. So you know what? I look back and when I was 20, man, if I could get a $15 ticket, boom, I'm going to the game. Great. That's awesome, right? Like we had that growing up. You used to get Safeway. You used to have Safeway tickets for $10. Right? And you sat in the Safeway section. Great. So to me, I think the Elks, Victor Cui, he said a lot of the right things. Now I need to see action, right? Saying and doing are very different. But I think looking that one size fits all, there's 9 different markets. They're very different. So, Randy thinking they're going to find one way to promote the league across the board that it's going to work, I think he's delusional. Every city's different and every fan base is different. So, how you're going to have to talk to people in Edmonton is going to be different how you talk to them in Ottawa or in Toronto.
Well, and even we have Kraken season tickets, right? And our tickets we're in the low, we have good seats and they're a lot more expensive than the ones up above, because they're trying to fill and, it's new Seattle. Okay. What is a Kraken? Yeah. What is a hockey? You can sit way upstairs there for a lot less money than you can down in the bowl,
And that's normal, right? That's how it is at every arena because you're closer to the action. It's like everybody would love to afford to sit lower. I think it's an experience that's very different. You see how much quicker the game is, regardless of the game you're watching. But to me, in Edmonton, they've had, like, I know that they even flirted with the idea of only selling lower bowl tickets. Right, they were just not going to sell anything, and then they got a real pushback from a lot of people who've had season tickets, in the second deck, right at the 50-yard line, and they love that vantage point. So, they're not doing it. But I think he's going to work really hard to get more people in the stadium, because if you get people in the stadium, and then obviously your team's got to be good. The Elks didn't win a home game last year. Right? Like, I don't care what you do. I don't care if you market on Instagram or TikTok. If your team sucks and they never win, it's a lot harder to get people. Like, look at Vegas. Vegas came in as an expansion team. They went to the Stanley Cup final. That's the most spoiled and lucky fan base in the history of sports, right? Like, their fan base right now, for the first time in 5 years, is experiencing the pain of being a fan. Right, where your team's losing, it's frustrating. They're probably going to miss the playoffs. They're banged up. They got key injuries. Right, like look at Seattle. Now the fans are excited there, but they're an expansion team. Right, they're not very good. They're kind of the norm of an expansion team. And I'm sure there's some people. Well, geez, we're not like Vegas. Well, Vegas was like the Wayne Gretzky of a franchise. So different than everybody else that if you try to compare yourself to them, you're going to end up being frustrated and disappointed, because no team is coming in and going to have the same success ever again as an expansion team.
It's just weird. Like, I was typing the description and stuff for the podcast here before, getting on, and like, I feel like I did the same thing a couple months ago, right? Like at CFL, we're moving to 4 downs, like all this stuff. You said before we got on, Commissioner Ambrosi is kind of always looking for the next big thing, right? I mean, it was like the global thing and then the XFL thing. And now it just really feel like we're talking Genius Sports all the time. Like we're a one track mind.
Yeah, and I honestly don't know how serious 4 downs, from the people I've talked to. I don't, that is a massive, massive change. And I think if you're looking, that might alienate your really diehard fan base, because I think there are some diehard fans who love the fact that the CFL is unique and different. And they've grown up on it. They've been used to it for years. To change it to 4 downs, that's a massive change. And you're doing that almost to cater to the people who haven't supported you, right? And that to me, when you're going to change in hopes of getting people who haven't supported you, I own businesses. That'd be the worst business plan I could think of, is to alienate my loyal fans just for the potential of new fans. That's just bad business.
Well, and it's not like the ratings are falling off a cliff. I mean, right? Like, we'd like to see TV ratings improve, right? And gate numbers, but it's not like there's nobody at the games. I mean, it's not like, the game is dying.
No, there's definitely a concern with the age of the CFL. I think that's a valid and fair concern. So you have to look and say, okay, what can we do? But you're not going to change everything and just magically, we changed to 4 down football. Now everybody under the age of 30 is going to rush to the gates and go see us play. That's not how it's going to work, right? That's delusional thinking in my opinion. And I would hope that the commissioner isn't seriously looking at that, because I think there would be, there'd be some serious ramifications to that. You have to do a long study on that. You'd have to talk to a lot of people to see, and then look and say, okay, why is this going to make people want to come to CFL football? If you have the same players, right? If you have the same players in the league now, what's the difference going to be? Honestly, it just has one extra down. Right? Like, you probably have more first downs in the game. Okay. Like I said, I think you'll have fewer punts. Okay. Is that automatically going to make your game better?
Yeah, I think when you look at it and not, obviously NFL is king in the talent level, but when you look at that drop off, but then you don't have to compare it to the same game. I think when it is the same game, it's the same problem the XFL had, right? If you're playing 4 downs, or like the USFL here is going to have in April, like, you're compared more to the NFL in that game. When the CFL, it's like you're your own unicorn. Like, you don't need to worry about that. You can be a little bit, different talent and excel in that different game.
Oh, they're two very different games, right? Like the time clock of the CFL is significantly different, right? Your player, and guys have talked about it. They come up, they're like, oh my goodness, like, you got to train differently because you're going 20-second clock. It's just, think about it, it's just recovery. It's basic, it's a different cardio level, right? You don't have the same size of players on the offense and defensive lines as you do. Now you have the odd guy, yes, but overall, no. So the games are just different. And I think the more the CFL spends time talking about how they're going to change themselves rather than focus on what they do well. And hey, you know what? For decades, you were able to attract people. Now, overall in every sport, young fans aren't as, they're into more quick hits, right? They're into more, hey, you know what? I don't want to watch the whole game. I'll watch the highlights. Okay. So you can still attract the fans by having a bigger presence. Talk to them on TikTok, talk to them on Instagram. Don't talk to them by changing 4 downs. That's not going to bring them to the game. That's not going to do anything. So you got to talk their level and understand what intrigues them. And you know what? They might be like, hey, that's pretty funny. I'll watch the games now. I'm watching the highlights. You know what? Maybe I'll come to 1 game a year. I don't think they're suddenly all going to, transform into being huge fans, but if you can get them in, and then the other thing is you got to make it a fun atmosphere at the games, right? That's a fact. You got to make it so it's like, hey, I'm here now. I'm encourage them while they're there to send out their TikToks while they're at the game, right? Have a Instagram place. That's what you have to do, right? You have to communicate with them how they communicate, and they communicate different than the previous generation. It's not better. It's not worse. It's just different. So that's what I think you have to look at and go to, because changing to 4 downs doesn't magically change any of the other ways you're connecting with that fan base.
Randy was talking about this drive to whatever the F1 thing, the behind the scenes drive to survive or whatever.
Drive to survive. It's great. It's a fantastic show.
Okay. So but the Red Blacks are doing that, right? They're doing the behind the R and all that. And I love that, right? And I've spoken on here and that's great. I don't know. I don't think there's 20,000 people watching that YouTube show, right? I mean, you're getting 1,000 views, whatever, and it's well produced and they're doing well. But I don't know if I don't care about the CFL, if a Drive to Survive about the CFL. I don't know. I mean, are people watching F1 because they've never seen it before, but they're just like, oh, this is an incredible show?
Oh, Reed, I can tell you 100%. In my own household, my wife is a diehard F1 fan now. Mainly because of Drive to Survive. Because in the Drive to Survive, what they did is they allowed, because Drive to Survive didn't attract their current, you're a CFL fan, no offense, they don't need to have a show to get you to come. This is for people who aren't fans of the game, because a lot of sport, like diehard fans like yourself and myself of sports, we watch it because we're diehard sports fans. My wife is not a huge sports fan, but she loves stories, right? She was a big Lewis Hamilton fan. She saw him on an interview talking about his life and everything, and that intrigued her. She's like, oh, wow. You know what? I quite liked him. So then when she watched Drive to Survive, and hey, there's drama. It's a little bit like a soap opera. And so that intrigues people, right? It's like The Bachelor. Shoot me if I have to watch The Bachelor. You couldn't pay me. But other people love the drama of it. So what Drive to Survive has done is it gets people to understand the characters, right? Now, there's only 10 teams. Right. And they focus on different characters. There's 20 drivers, 2 per team. But then there's, they focus on the Toto Wolff and the other. And so they create a little bit of animosity. So now F1 was pretty popular, but it made it popular, I think, amongst sports fans who weren't F1 fans. Right. And then it made it popular to people like my wife. And trust me, I talk about it on my show now, and we have tons of people who are texting like, oh yeah, my wife watches, I can watch it together, because it's about the human side of the sport, not the sport. Don't have anything that's going to talk about X and O's, right? There's some of the stuff in Drive to Survive that's a little bit about the car and how they make the engine work. And so that's interesting to some people, but most of it's just about personalities. Where do the drivers come from? This driver and that driver don't really like each other. Now we got some conflict. So when you look at the CFL and you have lots of different personalities, and the CFL, frankly, has done an awful job of promoting their own players. Most people have no connection. It's as simple as knowing, hey, you know what? What was Mike Riley's favorite song? Did you know that Mike Riley, I had a karaoke contest when he first came down to it. Mike Riley, who was a good guy, came up and he sang on karaoke. Here's the new quarterback of the Elks. He's at a karaoke contest and he's singing Baby Got Back, and people are dying laughing, right? You video that and you put it on there and people are like, oh my, that's a funny guy. Right? That's what you need to do. non-diehard fans is what that would go after. It wouldn't go after the Reed Johnsons and other diehard fans because, no offense, you've already got those fans. You'd still watch it and you'd probably like part of it, but it's not going to bring you to the games because you're already going to the games. It's about bringing new people to the game.
Do you think the CFL, though, is capable of producing something like that? I mean, I know in theory, this is great.
Well, the Ottawa one's pretty good, right? Overall, I think it comes down to two things, or a few things. Number one, if you're going to do it, you need a buy-in. You need some personalities. You need players and everybody, because football is the worst sport. I've covered lots of sport. There is no sport that has coaches more fearful of somebody sitting in the crowd, watching their practice, stealing all their plays. Like, dude, it's loud. I used to do junior football and I was hilarious. They used to practice under the high-level bridge in Edmonton. High-level bridge. It's very high. We're talking, I don't know how high up it is. And we'd be watching, I'd be there at practice and all of a sudden there'd be like somebody walking across the bridge that would stop. Oh, this is a scout from Saskatoon. We got to get that guy off the bridge. Like, I'd be like, what? Are you on crack? What are you talking about? Right? Like, and the funny thing is, guess what? You guys all watch the tape. Everybody knows what you're doing. It's just a matter of, can you execute it better? Every now and then there's a trick play. Sure. So you would need the football guys to let down their guard a bit and show some personality, mix in a little bit of X and O's for the diehard Reed Johnsons out there. But then you need to go to the personalities and find out good stories about the players and go into it and have players who are willing to talk about it. Right? Somebody who's going to say something controversial and it's going to, you know what? I don't like that guy. And people are going to be like, oh yeah, so you don't like him. That doesn't mean you're a bad human. It doesn't mean they're a bad human. You need conflict for these shows to go. So as long as they don't try to make it all family friendly and, like, not that it has to be R-rated by any stretch, but you can have a little bit of conflict and that's okay.
Well, I mean, because the CFL has so little of that now. I remember it was like going into the playoffs last year and I think it was like the Ticats. Someone said something about like stomping in the end zone. I can't remember what it was. And people went crazy for a week over it. And it was just like some stupid comment. You're doing the player interviews and stuff anyway. I don't know. I feel like it would be a good idea. I just don't know. I don't trust them finding someone or you're bringing in a group. But I guess, they would have to reach the outside. They would have to bring in a firm or someone to kind of work.
Yeah. It's got to be, the idea makes a lot of sense. I've said when I look at the success of Drive to Survive, and that's really successful in North America, where F1 races once in Canada a year, once or twice maybe in the US, right? For the most part, they're racing they race all over, right? But so they're a global product, so that's definitely there, right? And it's pretty rich for sure, but people, they still find a way to take these ultra rich sport and you can relate to the average fan to it. That's what the genius of it is. And how did they relate to it? By human interest stories. And that's what the CFL has. The CFL, if anything, you've got way more guys coming from different parts of it, but you can't just do the easy. Oh, here's so and so. He grew up in the South, and you know what? He didn't come from money, and now he's in the league. Yeah, well, we've heard that story 100 times, right? So there's got to be more than just that one.
Well, it certainly wouldn't hurt. I mean, I saw the comment yesterday, and Randy said well, now we know that we don't need to, do newspaper ads or whatever as a way to reach out. I'm like, well, I could have told you that and you wouldn't have needed to give me 10% of the marketing arm of the CFL, right? I mean, some of this stuff is there for them. I just don't know. I think you've known for a while what the problem is. I don't know. I mean, maybe now we'll figure it out.
Yeah, but even a statement like that, it's to suggest that you can advertise anywhere if it's done properly. Right. So, you know what? So if you say you're not in the newspaper, so does that mean now you're not on the digital side of the newspaper? You're just going to ignore it? You got to look at a lot of different things. I think if you're in marketing and someone tells you never advertise here, I don't think that's a good marketing because you don't know. You don't know where your fans are. Are you certain? There's lots that still read the paper. Right now, it might be an online paper. So how do you mix that in? How can you have a different feel of marketing on who you're going to touch on? There's not one thing. That's the thing. Here's the old adage on marketing, right? 50% of your marketing works. You just don't know which 50% at any given time, right? So to want to just rule out one, now I wouldn't put all my eggs in one basket, right? But I think for the CFL, to me, they've got to market themselves better. That's at the end of the day. And I think that comes down to individual teams. Like Saskatchewan's in a much different boat than BC. Right? They're in a different boat even than Edmonton and Calgary, to be honest. Like Edmonton still, because of the size of their stadium, and like Edmonton should be able to get 40,000 fans a game. If they do that, I don't care what the ticket price is. You're going to make more in food and beverage. You're going to have a better atmosphere at the crowd. And to me, that should be their goal. And I know that like Victor Cui wants to have sellouts. Now that's a massive goal to get to, but like they needed a guy like Victor Cui who comes in, he's younger, right? I think he understands, and he's not afraid to be bold. And I find that the CFL has, like, their best marketing campaign ever was "Our balls are bigger," and then they gave up on it because somebody got offended by it. Like, boo hoo. There was nothing offensive by it. It was a fact. The football is bigger. End of story.
But you can't find, you can't have 9 Victor Cui. I mean, that just doesn't, I mean, do you make him be commissioner then? I mean, do you move him up and say, hey,
no, but here,
let's rein this down?
If he comes in and has success in what he's doing, right now, I look at Ottawa. Ottawa has done a pretty good job of their, they got really strong ownership in Ottawa, right? So I think that organization's in a good spot. I'm curious to see the new owner in BC now, right? Like there's been a little bit of a turnover here recently. When you only have 9 teams, you have a new ownership in BC that's very, he I think is going to be bold as well. You have a new president in Edmonton. There's 2 of your 9 teams, right? Saskatchewan and Winnipeg are on very solid ground right now. I think Ottawa's in a good spot. Toronto is what Toronto is. They're always still, working. I think they can do better things overall than what they do. But, hey, in the NHL, not every market's great either. In the NFL, Jacksonville, we can go through the list of not one league has every franchise running on all cylinders, right? So when you have a smaller league, if 1 or 2 aren't at the peak, there's too much focus on it, I think, at times, because I'm like, we can find that in every league. The difference of the NFL is they make so much money on TV that even the horribly run franchises still make money.
Yeah, I mean, look at NHL, and Arizona is moving to some, right, like a rinky.
Yeah, and that's, what's like, people, there's going to be a lot of frustration around that, Reed, no question. But at the same time, it's probably going to be the best atmosphere they've ever played in, right? It might have a little bit of a college feel. It's a 5,000 seat arena. It's like, my goodness, it's going to be sold out for sure, right? And they'll probably be able to charge more for tickets there overall than having 12,000 people when some of those, and I know that Arizona comp tickets like no other team, right? So how much was that it was paid? I don't think there's going to be many comp tickets in the new arena, right? And so I would be curious what the actual bottom line is. Arizona has never been close to making a ton of money in their gates. So, there's different things that you can do. And in the CFL, I just go back to it. They have to focus on them rather than worrying about everybody else. I don't hear a lot of other companies focusing on other leagues. Just say, hey, this is what we do. Stop. We know what the NFL is. I don't hear the NHL talk about the NFL, right? Different sport, but they're competing against each other. Make no mistake, the NHL, the NBA, the NFL, they all compete against each other, and the NFL dominates all of them. So why would the CFL even remotely talk about the NFL? It's a waste of energy. They're not the NFL. They're never going to be the NFL. They just can't be. So don't worry about it.
Well, that's good. I appreciate it. This has been good today. I'm glad that we had a little bit of, a little spiciness here. It was a little slow, the CFL, the last couple of weeks. So this has definitely been a little bit of injection. Jason Gregor, thank you so much again for your time. It's always a delight. I could talk to you for hours. It's a lot of fun.
Reed, always good to come on, man. They need more people like you. Keep pushing the CFL, talking football. That's what people want.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Hey guys, I want to thank Tim and Jason for coming on, sharing their time and knowledge and expertise today on the program. Really good to talk USFL. I like having the CFL stuff too. I like the drama a little bit. You get a lot of these fans don't like, the 4 downs, changing the game, all that. I've said it before, I don't think that's the answer either. I think the drive to survive is a better route to go, right? Like the Red Blacks are doing behind the R. I think trying to change your game to fit, to like Jason said, to hope that you're going to attract new viewers, at the risk of alienating the ones you have. I think that's questionable, but it's interesting. Commissioner Ambrosi is an interesting guy. one track mind kind of see, we go from the global initiative, we're going to the XFL, we're going to this. But it's going to be exciting. If nothing else, gives us something to talk about in the off season, which, the CFL does always like to do, likes to disappear a little bit. So I really appreciate them. A couple other news tidbits before we get into our player interviews today. MLFB, Major League Football, RIP, Josh Davis. Josh was friends with Frank Murtha, who's the CEO of the league. They're kind of making their resurgence. They had their first head coach announced this week, and Jerry Glanville came out. Jerry has been in the Spring League and the NFL and CFL. I mean, Jerry's been all over the place. Jerry's like 90 years old. I don't know how old Jerry is. Jerry's going to be their first head coach. As you listen to this today, MLFB is supposed to have a site refresh and some new head coaches and information coming out. Apparently, they are kicking off in May this year. As little as we knew about the USFL, who they had their head coaches. Their coaching staffs come out today as we record this Thursday. We know even less about MLFB, but they have said that they are kicking off. Really curious to see kind of the level of coaching and staff and players they get. Jerry Glanville is a good hire, right? I mean, that's certainly someone that fans know, has been in the system, has done the whole spring league, and has done kind of the alt football thing. Curious to see what the other head coach is. We're still waiting on cities. We're still waiting on, teams and kind of all that stuff. But time is of the essence, them moving forward. I know there's a lot of hesitation with the MLFB online and in the message boards and stuff. I can certainly understand that. But I wish nothing but the best for that, but keep your ears out. Check the website today, Major League Football, and see what they have coming in store. I've been told they're streaming the games on their website, right? They're not like looking at a TV deal. So just to kind of set your levels of expectations for kind of what you're hoping for from this. I think USFL is ultimately going to be your better option if you want, kind of maybe more of what you're accustomed to. But if you're someone like Vince that's been on the show before, Alt Football Scout, Vince watches a lot of streams online, a lot of stuff overseas. If you're a little bit more used to that, a little more rugged football kind of, I got to log in to, to the website or whatever that way. Maybe MLFB will be your thing, but I think for the casual fan, I think USFL, and then, hopefully we can get you guys watching CFL here in the summer, but I think that's going to be your best bet. Hey guys, feature read here. We have some late breaking MLFB Major League Football news coming out courtesy of Eagle Eye viewer, listener of the program, Harrison. Harrison, you, listener Max, you guys know I appreciate you keeping me up to date and apprised of all this crazy stuff. I never doubt any of this. We're late break. We're re-recording segments of the show for Major League Football. So Reed's got too much time. But I'm already getting DMs about this because I posted the promo and people said, Reed, are you going to be talking about all the MLFB stuff? We already know Jerry Glanville, right? I've already talked about that. I don't really get the fascination with Major League Football. I understand we want alternative football leagues, right? Believe me, I'm a proponent of all of that. I would rather watch fan control football, indoor football league. To me, if MLFB is kicking off in May, I would just watch the CFL. I would use May to get hooked for the CFL, figure training camps, all that stuff, and then get ready to go that way. I've never gotten this. We've had questions about MLFB since the beginning of the podcast. I think it's because they acquired like the old AAF stuff back in the day, and so people think like, well, I like the Apollos, and I just don't think it's going to translate, right? We've talked, and they're going to be streaming the games likely on their website, right? We have Jerry Glanville. That maybe is the high water mark of the coaches. But MLFB, we have this information. They have released their quarterly reports today. They are a publicly traded, I think they're a publicly traded company. Like they submit all this stuff all the time. So that's how people get this information. And the plan is there are going to be 4 teams this year. It's going to be Ohio, Virginia, Arkansas, and Texas. Odd choices. They say in the release that their goal is to go into franchises with cities overlooked in the large part by existing professional sports leagues. I don't see Texas as that. I also, traditionally you pick like St. Louis, right? Birmingham. I don't know. Ohio is a hotbed. They were big into the XFL. They were watching all that. Virginia, Arkansas, they're doing that. But there's going to be 4 teams. They said that they've they've scouted enough. They have enough equipment for high quality and multi-platform media transmissions, aligned broadcasts in all of our games, and multi-level of today's technology. I'm just reading out the press release here. They've acquired all the necessary football and related equipment to fully outfit at least 8 teams for this year, but I guess 8 overall, because by that point you're going to have like 5-year-old equipment. It says here they are in the process of hiring several well-known, experienced coaches, scouts, and trainers, as well as individuals looking to improve their skills in those areas. We had kind of presumed we were going to get more of the coaches. Today, probably as you're listening to this, interesting if they're still hiring coaches for that. We don't have any idea about players. We have Jerry Glanville. I don't know. I get it. I get the optimism, right? I get all of this, and I get that people get defensive. Like, why are you guys being so hard on the MLFB? Why are we not? Or why do we care? This is weird. If we are March 17th here, this is dated, and we are still in the process of hiring the coaches. Nothing about players. I mean, Fan Control Football, they have bussed in their players. I believe Wednesday, as I recorded this. Their season is kicking off inexplicably the same day as the United States Football League is kicking off, but. Anyway, that's your MLFB update. The Jerry Glanville thing we knew, right? But they're presumably streaming the games on the website. These are your 4. Does that do anything for you if they're playing those? I don't know. They were going to do a demo season last year, kind of like a bubble hub. That got pushed back because of COVID. And it says here that they're just going to kind of go ahead with that now. They want to serve as a pipeline to develop players, coaches, official scouts, and trainers that the NFL needs. I don't know. I get the optimism. I get the curiosity. That is where I am at. I am pleading you, if you are interested in football in the late spring, early summer, I would watch the CFL. That is just me. That is your MLFB update from Future Read. Thanks. The USFL coaches also, they released all their coaching staffs today, so I tweeted all that out. I know Mark at USFL News Hub is going to have a breakdown of kind of all that stuff. The only notes I had, Pepper Johnson is going to be involved. Pepper was back in the original XFL. These are a lot of names. Again, the casuals aren't going to know, right? Like the second assistant, quarterbacks, whatever for the USFL. But good to see all that coming out. Players are reporting on Tuesday for training camp, and then it's starting later in the week. So, they obviously wanted to get all of their, coaching staff and all that stuff out. So that's exciting. Again, you can check my Twitter. You can check XFL, USFL, not XFL. Mark, you can check the USFL News Hub on Twitter or the website to kind of get all that information. Going to segue to our interviews with Solomon Wise of the previously mentioned USFL, and then Andrew Peirson before we let you go today. Thanks. Well, I'm thrilled today. We have Solomon Wise of My Philadelphia Stars on the program. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing good, man. Just woke up with a smile on my face,
Well, it's an exciting time. We cover a lot of these leagues, talk with a lot of the players. What's it been like the last couple of weeks since getting drafted and being involved in the USFL?
It was a big switch because I wasn't expecting them to draft me. I'm not going to lie to you. They sent me the email. I was like, okay. I filled that out. I was expecting, just get late round or picked up somewhere. But this is actually a better opportunity because, better film, not really better film, but just I get to showcase myself a little bit more against better talent instead of going to a practice squad. So, yeah.
What was it like for you finding out? I mean, what was 3 weeks ago now, right? You were taken in the first draft. So what was it like?
So, I was at MJP. I was training. So I was getting ready for my pro day training. I just came back from the HBCU combine like 2 weeks prior to. So I was kind of in like a steady pace, like, okay, just doing football drills and whatnot. Then I get back to my phone. I get some guy walks in MJP. Congratulations, man. What? It's like, oh, stop playing. And he walks away. So then I go to my phone and I have all these notifications on my phone. I'm like, oh, shoot. Oh, wow. So then I figured out I got drafted. And I had these missed calls. So I called him back. It was, ended up being a DC and whatnot. And then, that was that. Kind of works, honestly,
Talk about just, it's so hard in these leagues, right? And you're playing and you're hustling and kind of the not knowing now you kind of have a spot to go for the next extended period of time, right? Knowing you have a home base. Right. What is it like?
It's comforting, but I can't lose sight of my goal. I want to dominate this league. I want to show myself to be, who I'm supposed to be, you know what I mean? That's just that's my head is right now. Just dominating this league first, and everything else can wait, honestly. Yeah.
We were talking last week, Sean Brown, one of your also fellow teammates with the Stars, excited. He said he's excited to be a part of history, right? Kind of we don't call it a relaunch anymore, right? With the lawsuit, but we call it, the new USFL, right? Being a part of that. What does it mean to be part, Fox, NBC, everything, being on this premier platform that you guys are going to be on?
It means a lot because a lot of people don't have this opportunity. It's all about the opportunity that is presented in front of someone and how they choose to take it in. Somebody could say, "Oh, this is not enough. This is not that," but it's just like kids going to Jackson State. They're on primetime television. They're still playing, and they're still going to get picked up. It's all the same. It's all the same. It's all the same. I have a chance to play really good football on primetime television while people are eating food, in restaurants, everywhere, on 2 different networks. So when I look at it like that, I'm saying just like my brother's playing primetime on Monday Night Football. It's the same thing. It's same company, same networks that's holding us. So, like I said, all I got to do is dominate this league and the world will see it. And everybody will see it. So, you know what I mean? So, it's a great opportunity.
Seeing the various staff, right, coaches involved, right, even a management, right, we got Moose Johnston and everybody involved, Fox and all that. But, especially the coaches that you're going to have, having that skill set around you, right, to help you grow, help you improve. What does that mean?
It's good to have experience around, especially at a certain level, because place that you come from, guys have experience, but not depth in experience. Not like I used to be a head coach, or I used to play this, or I used to do that. So I love being a student of the game. Like people that really know me, I love being a student of the game. Kind of like Bruce Lee said, kind of wherever you're at, you have to absorb your whole entire environment. Somebody speaking, kind of just like, okay, he has more experience than me. I can learn something. Even though you may know more, you don't know at the time. Just find out, open your ears and learn. But from these coaches, I'm going to learn a lot. Like I really can't wait. I really can't wait, yeah.
You talk about dominating the game, right? You talk about standing out. What type of player do you view yourself as, right? What do you try to leave on the field?
I'm a finesser. I'm a quick, fast player. I set up. I don't want to say too much for the guys who's watching Offensive Lineman, but I set up myself for future moves, stuff like that. So I'm a big finesser. Like you may think I'm doing this, but I'm coming under. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. And I just have to see the defense that we're going to be in. I got to soak that into that more. I talked to the DC. He said everything is going to be here when I get here. Just have a clear mind and just be in football shape and play fast. It's going to be a real fast game, and I'm the perfect player for that. So, yeah.
I don't say we are very high on the Stars, right? I have lots of friends of the show, the program on the team, right? Your quarterback, Brian Scott, friend of the show, special teams, Matt Mangle. I think you guys are really set up well with Coach Andrus, having been in the system before, right? Having done Spring League, having done XFL. Talking with some of the players, talking with the guys, how are you feeling going into training camps and going into the season? Because I think you guys have a really good crew with you.
Yeah, we do, honestly, and I want to be surprised. I'm pretty sure we might go all the way, but we'll see. How I feel with these guys, I talked to Brian. We've DM'd. My buddies Jordan Moore. I talked to some of the D linemen. I haven't got a chance to talk to everybody like I wanted to, but we're gonna talk when we get there, and I know it's gonna be a good atmosphere because everybody is in the same headspace, and that's what you need for a good team. Every good team. Everybody has to be on the same mission, same mindset. And when you move, we synchronize. We move as one. We step on the field knowing the goal. You know what I mean? So we step on the field flowing with the same kind of tenacity, ambition. I know my quarterback got that. So I know the offense is in great hands. This guy he has fire in his heart, and I already know that. And I do too. So, yeah.
Having the opportunity for this, right? Having these alternate leagues like the USFL, or we even have like Major League Football now. They're talking about coming back in May. I don't really know about that one, but having these leagues, giving players the opportunity. Talk about the importance of that, right? To be able to work on everything, film. If you do want to get back to the NFL, whatever you want to do.
Yeah. So you get guys that are capable of taking anybody's spot in the NFL. NFL is a good league, and not to down the players in the NFL, but a lot of things are overrated more than people expect, more than people think. And I believe that a lot of these guys that are sitting at home, or a lot of these guys that are in smaller leagues, could definitely play in the NFL. I've seen it happen multiple times. I've seen the Heineke's of the league. I've seen, my brother, Daniel Wise, he come out of nowhere and play on the Commanders and do his thing. And he's been doubted for 3 years in the NFL. He comes back and tears up some of the most like the Hall of Famer offensive linemen. You know what I mean? I don't want to say names right now, but it's just all about opportunity. It's about who's going to give a chance on a defense that's fit for that person, offense is fit for that person, the scheme that's meant for this type of player. So these leagues like this is just another way to showcase that we belong, and just it's all about seizing opportunity that guys have right there in their hands. They got to take it and grab it. They got to run with it. So they can't play with opportunities like this. So these are great opportunities to showcase guys that have potential to start in the NFL.
Daniel Wise is your brother?
Yes, he is.
That's exciting. Washington is my team too. That's very exciting. I don't know how I feel about our quarterback this year, but Washington is my team.
Yeah. Who's the quarterback again? I don't know.
Carson Wentz.
Oh, we'll see. We will see. We'll see. That's all I gotta say. We'll see. No. Yeah.
Heineke is my boy. Yeah. We followed him from the Battlehawks. We did the whole Fitzpatrick experiment. But yeah, I don't know how I feel about Carson Wentz. That's phenomenal. I'm so glad that someone else I can talk Washington football with. That's very
cool. Right? Yeah, I'm a fan.
Getting ready. You guys are reporting next week. You're traveling around. Talk about that before I let you go. Just, the excitement. What else you have going on before you're getting to training camp?
So before we get into training camp, what do I have going on? So I'm gonna stop by the my pro day. I'm just gonna talk, do a little bit more networking, say hey to everybody, kind of just show my face. I don't know if I'm gonna do a pro day, but I probably won't. But a lot of people they told me to come out from my coaches, from other scouts that said just show your face. We want to see how much you weigh and all that. And that's on 21st. And right after that, I'm driving to Birmingham. So I'm already locked in right now. So I just need a playbook. That's all I need.
Yeah, excited to set up shop. We're going to be there in April for the big kickoff. So, we'll be doing our show there. Last question, just what does it mean to have this opportunity, right? To be selected? Like you said, you didn't know if you were going to get drafted. You thought maybe you get picked up later. What does it mean to you to have all this happen in the last couple weeks?
My dad said when good things happen, expect it. And I expect good things to happen when I know it's going to happen. So I'm actually proud of this moment. This is a big moment for my family, 3 boys in the league, or 3 boys playing professional sports. So, that's just, I'm trying to create this dynasty, trying to finish it off, be the anchor of my family. So it just means a lot. It means a lot. It means a lot that this organization in the league was looking at me as one of, a linebacker so they can premiere, stuff like that. And just, it's very humbling, because sometimes you have people are lost where they are. I'm not saying I was lost, but I had a sense of okay, I didn't have a sense of okay, I knew things were going to happen. I didn't know how they were going to play out. So I know how they're going to play out now. I control my own narrative, so that's that, you know.
Well, I'm excited. I think you're in a good spot. I think you have a good team, leadership around you. I'm wishing you the best, and I do think I feel good. Deep run at a minimum, but all the way at least. I think it's going to be good. I'm cheering for you guys out there.
Appreciate that, man. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Seriously.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, man.
Alrighty.
Well, I am thrilled today. We have Andrew Peirson of America's CFL team, the BC Lions, on. Andrew, how are you doing today?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm happy to be on. I'm a big fan. I appreciate what you're doing down south of the border, supporting us. So happy to be on, man.
Well, I appreciate you coming on today. I know you've been busy at the movies. I don't know spoilers, but what did you think of the Batman?
Yeah, so it's funny. I got asked to do this. My teammates and I have been trying to go see it, trying to find a time that works. So today was the first day, and I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was really good. It wasn't what I was expecting. It was a little different than traditional kind of superhero movies. So I thought the acting, the casting was awesome. Yeah, it was pretty good. It's long. It's like 3 hours, so it's a grind there, especially for us that just finished up workouts, right? So we're fully hydrated and everything. I'm running back and forth from the bathroom, but it was an awesome movie.
Yeah, so spill the beans. Who's in this secret movie club with the BC Lions? I want to know who is in this little community.
Secret. It's no secret. I mean, so yeah, I was myself, Dave Neville, Isaiah Messam, and Jacob Scarfone. So some of the guys, there's a lot of guys here working out in the off season. A lot of the offensive lines here working with some of the skill guys. So we try to do some stuff on outside the locker room, outside the training facility, and it's been fun.
Well, I like it. And I like you, the rap with the O-line is always, no personality, right? You're just kind of there working. You're very, bombastic. I've seen you, running into Zoom calls online and things like that. So, is that just who you are? Do you try to go out of your way to change that stereotype, or walk me through kind of how you look at your role there in the media?
I will say, yeah, traditionally offensive linemen have this stereotype where we have to be, this big, tough, maybe mean, depending on what your kind of predisposition of the position is. But, a lot of times we can be pretty funny. And I know a lot of the different guys I've played with across college and university and now the pros, they're some of the funniest guys on the team. So, just getting out there, showing some of the funnier sides of us, and I enjoy it. And it's kind of who I am. I'm kind of like that. I like to kind of get out there and have some fun.
Well, it's good, and it seems like, Lions, we didn't end the season maybe how we wanted, we finally ended it the right way, but it was kind of like we put the corpse to bed, we were able to beat Edmonton, but, it seems like a lot of excitement going into this year, right? New ownership, even Henry Burris coming on today, kind of working with the, in training camps and everything, Nathan Rourke, a myriad of things I want to ask you about. What excites you the most of heading into the 2022 season?
Just touching on last season, in any time in sports, you kind of wish when you have this new coaching staff and some new pieces, new ownership, you kind of wish you can just slap it together and it's a fairy tale, but oftentimes that's not kind of what happens. You need time to gel for pieces to get cohesive, especially in our position, the offensive line. It takes a little bit of working and how people play and knowing that this means that, and just, maybe non-verbal things that you can just now know that this is the standard. So, that was last year. We're working hard in this off season as a group together. I know the coaching staff is upstairs working hard too. And we're doing all this stuff in the community to try to grow the game. So there's lots of good stuff, lots of positive momentum that you're mentioning going into this season. So I'm looking really forward to it. We have a lot of exciting pieces outside of our position, the offensive line, the kind of the exciting guys that, make those flashy plays. So we brought some guys in that we're really excited about, and continuing with a lot of the momentum that we had last year with a lot of the playmakers that we had. Lucky, Brian on the offensive side. no telling what those guys can do when they get the ball. So we just got to give Nate a little bit of time, and I think everyone's going to be really surprised with what he's capable of doing.
Yeah, we'll touch on Nate. Does it help, like even today, things, right? Working out with the guys, spending time outside, getting to know everybody, doing that extra work. You always hear that, right? Oh, so-and-so, in the NFL, so-and-so quarterback paid $10 million to fly in all these people. Right? Well, we're not doing that, in the CFL, but we're seeing the Batman. We're spending time together. We're working in the off season. I think that stuff is so paramount, right? Where it is trying to create the CFL as more of a year-round lifestyle, right? That you guys are a part of, than just like we're turning this on and off in the on and off season, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, it comes down to it. Football is about building trust. It's about building these relationships, and trust is kind of that foundation that is built upon. So, the trust starts in the weight room with a lot of us, and, seeing that, tenacity and that hard work, so when we go on the field, I saw that guy go out there and, push it all in the off season. Now going into training camp, I know that I can lean on him a little bit. He can lean on me. So, for sure.
Talking about Nathan, right? You're paramount, to this offense and him and everything. Thoughts on him as a leader coming in, big shoes to fill, right? Lots of, this legacy of Michael Riley and everything. Nathan was on the show, got like a month ago now, very sure of himself, right? This quiet confidence. How do you read him?
How I read him is he's an interesting guy in the sense that he's not very vocal. He's not screaming, but what he is doing is leading by example. That guy's in the gym every single day. He comes in early, starts lift early, stays late to do stretches, and he's throwing all the time. I'm glad that people get to see some of the stuff he gets to do because he poses a little bit, like that 10% of what he does to social media. So, when you see someone like that that's working that hard, it makes you want to work a little better. And oftentimes I find, let's start stretching a little bit more. Why don't we stretch with Nate and stuff like that? So, leading by example is a very powerful tool because oftentimes if you're just leading but like vocally and not following it up with those actions that kind of give you that momentum, and then it's kind of just loose. It's just kind of like, out there. It doesn't have that backing, but Nate has that backing with the work that he's putting in the film room, in the weight room, and on the field practicing throwing and stuff like that. So I'm really looking forward to it. And I think, like I said, I think it's going to be a good season for him.
The other thing that came out today, and obviously, before or it was after, we scheduled all this, but, Henry Burris coming in, right, to work through training camp and stuff. More than anything, that to me just speaks to like, the Lions staff kind of trying to think outside the box here, right? Like, what are some unique things we can do? What are some different things we can do? Thoughts on that and reactions to when you heard that?
Yeah, no, we talked about it today when we were warming up on the field doing our workouts, and we were talking about it, and Nate was so excited just because, that's another piece to the puzzle that can help him grow. And he's going to, he mentioned, it is a young group. It's a young room. So having that, veteran kind of status, someone that's been there, been to the dance, done the dancing. So, having someone like that in the room to kind of steer them the correct way and steer all of us. When you have someone like that, it doesn't matter. It's not just positional. It's across the whole team. So I know just today, because it just came out, I think, it just did today. So, I haven't spoke to a lot of the guys outside of the field here. But I know just in our facility, it's buzzing.
You've been with the Lions a couple of years now, right? What different feelings going into this year, right? Like, Amar Doman came in, middle of the season. That's kind of weird, right? Lots of changes with Mike Riley, everybody else. Obviously this year, every year I imagine going in feels different, right, than the year before. But what does it feel like this year? What sense are you getting heading into the season?
I think the kind of tone right now, and this isn't, outside of just myself, it's just me talking, but, I get this sense of buying in. People are buying in, from our standpoint, controlling what we can control. And why I'm saying that is, you see, we have pretty much the whole O-line, at least speaking on behalf of our positional group, almost the whole O-line here working every single day. And then doing extra stuff, going to yoga, and now we're doing some film work or field work. just stuff like that. So, people are buying in on our team, and I know that's the truth for the guys outside of the facility as well, back in their respective homes. I know just from talking to them, it's the same kind of thing. And so we're excited. It's our, I think going in, there's not too many surprises that could happen from externally. So we're looking forward to playing some football with a passionate owner and an excited fan group. We're looking forward to fighting to bring the cup back to BC.
Talk to me about this yoga.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that it's just something that, it doesn't matter how big or anything like that, tight hips and all this stuff is awesome. Tight hips isn't awesome, but loosening up the tight hips is something that's very valuable for an offensive lineman, because, we're so big. So there's a lot of weight on our lower body. So kind of taking that bit to loosen up. It's also pretty good for the head too, to kind of take some time to focus just on your body, not lifting weights or running fast. Just focus on the little things and how your body's feeling, listening to it, what kind of reflecting on the day. So we just started that recently, and the good people over in New West are giving us a hand here. So it's hot yoga too, so we get a little sweat going. So it's good time. We're enjoying it, and it's definitely going to probably pay dividends for our game.
Yeah, I was quite a yogi back years ago, and then once you become self-employed, it's hard to be like, I'm going to go spend 3 hours going to hot yoga and all this stuff.
I feel that, yeah.
We've had a lot of off-season talk, and you always hear people like, well, you can't judge anything on paper, and it's on the field and all that stuff, but you seem like more of a straight shooter. So, Lions, we're feeling good about the Lions, right? We're going, but, you're looking at other teams, who do you think is looking good? I mean, you seem like someone that pays attention to everyone else. I mean, who do you see as formidable foes here heading into the season?
I mean, I hate to break to you, I really don't focus too much on, I try to compartmentalize so much just of what I can control, and that's kind of our group. I will say, Winnipeg's always going to be, they're a well-oiled machine. So, the West is always good. I know a lot of dogs went over to the East on the defensive side. Some guys were going to play. So in that sense, preparing, kind of watching film on some guys, getting some tendencies and stuff like that. In that sense, we're all preparing, just not myself. We're all preparing for things like that, defensive fronts, kind of tendencies and stuff like that. So I think the East got a little stronger with some of the defensive guys they picked up, but the West is always strong. So we got to take care of business here in the West to start, and win those crucial games when we do cross over.
For you, personally, 4 years here, what are your goals for the season? What are you hoping to accomplish? How do you feel proud of yourself coming out of the year?
That's a great question. And it's something, I definitely focus on is control. Like I've already said it a couple of times, controlling what I can control. And that's just, I always like to live by, not trying to go outside my means. I just want to live every single day that I'm able to play this sport. I want to hang my hat and dust my boots off and, say that I gave it my all today. I don't want to feel like, I left anything on the field, because the thing about this sport is it's not forgiving. And, you have a couple bad days or anything like that, you never know what could happen. So I want to leave every day knowing that I gave my best, control what I control, and in all aspects representing the BC Lions, in the community, anything like that. I want to know that while I've had this opportunity, I want to fulfill everything I can do every single day.
Anything else you want us to know about you before I let you go? I mean, besides being, a movie aficionado, right? Someone now that's into yoga. I mean, I feel like we're crossing boundaries here, but anything else? Like I said, the O-line never gets any credit, right? It's like 90% of everything goes through you guys. But I like to get the personalities out there, especially the CFL guys that come on. What would you like people to know about you before we let you go?
The thing, it's not really about me. It's just that, there's a lot of awesome guys in our league that do a lot outside of the game. Personality wise, they're characters, but they're doing a lot of awesome stuff outside the field too, and in their own respective fields, kind of growing that, who they are away from the field. So I know personally, I'm studying for the CFA, the Chartered Financial Analyst, try to start to build my financial, backing for when football's done here. So that's kind of what I do to stay busy when I'm not playing football here, is, trying to try to study a little bit. Got my level 2, had my level 1 last year during COVID. So, there's a lot of great guys and across the league that are doing a lot of fun stuff outside the field. And I know the Lions here, we're working on something pretty soon here to, send out to the fans and getting a little bit more into, what's behind the football player. So I'm excited to see how that goes out. I won't give up too much. I'll just tease a little bit, but we have a little bit going on that kind of shows the fans, who's Andrew, who's some of these players outside the field and what their personalities are a little more like, rather than just hearing the kind of classic, football interviews. So I'll leave it at that. I don't want to give too much away, but we're looking forward to that. So, yeah.
Well, but that to me, that is what makes the CFL, a non-NFL, whatever, we cover XFL and all that stuff too, but, the approachability of the players, right? Getting to know them on a level that you never will. And, that I can, reach out to Matt, have you on the next day, fans can interact online, do things, but you know what I mean? But it sets it up uniquely that way, where the people that listen and follow are so attached to the players, and that's why it's so hard sometimes when players move. And I don't want to get into the contracts and stuff, but you get to, because these fans love you guys, and then you move teams or whatever. So it's good to have stability. I'm excited for BC. I hope that this whole Nathan Rourke and Michael O'Connor, I hope all this works out this year. I mean,
I'm telling you, there's no man that works harder than Nate, and I know that speaks for Michael as well. He just got here, but I've been working with Nate now for a year, so you see him work and you see him grind, and if I know one thing, you keep working hard and you're going to be rewarded. You know what I mean? So looking forward to it. And speaking on Nate, a lot of the stuff that some people that don't know, he is huge in the community now too. So. I'm really proud of him. I don't want to say proud because it sounds like I'm a proud dad, but he's out there in the community doing so much great stuff to grow the game of football and the various things the Lions have us do in the community for different initiatives through our sponsors. So we're super happy that we get to work with a class act off the field as well as like someone like Nate.
Well, all eyes on BC this year. Big excitement. High risk, high reward. I like it. I'm a fan. I said, it kind of seemed like when they were signing Lucky and re-signing Brian and everything, I was like, it really feels like BC is buying a Grey Cup. And then if America had a CFL team, we would buy a Grey Cup. So I am a proponent of that. Andrew, I appreciate your time. It's a delight. Good personality all around. And thank you so much for taking the time.
Hey, and like I said at the beginning, I'm a huge fan. Appreciate what you're doing to grow the game, and let's go Lions. Appreciate you.
There you go. Chat soon. Thanks. Hey guys, we have a last minute voicemail come in today. I just got done recording the show. I was talking with Tim. I just got a voicemail to our SpeakPipe account from Ken. Remember, if you have a voicemail for the show, themarkcast.com/voicemail. I got nothing but time at the end of the show. If you want to leave voicemails about anything, I'm happy to play them. We can listen to your question and then answer it on here. Ken has a question about the USFL. We're going to play it. 90 seconds, Ken, is a little lengthy for a voicemail, but that's okay. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt this time, 60 seconds or less, I would say. But let's see what Ken has to say about the USFL lawsuit, and then we will talk about it.
Hi, yeah. Listen, I'm listening to your podcast about the USFL, the real USFL, and all that good stuff.
All that good stuff.
I'm a fan of the old USFL, and yes, there is nostalgia there. I think what they should have done is realize that when they had their league, right? Because you can say, hey, I did all this, I did all that. I think you really need to support what you're trying to do. And obviously they did a terrible job at it. They tried to have a lawsuit to save their bad managing then. They're having a lawsuit now to try to make some money back. Just a question. Everybody's saying how they are being deprived of funds. So I'm just wondering, when they lost their $163 million, did they pay every cent of that to every person that owed the money, that they owed the money to? Or were some of the debts forgiven because of the fact that they couldn't pay and they went under? So maybe part of the reason why they went under and were able to survive personally was because they didn't have to pay for all their debts. Okay? So if they got money for this, what happens to those other people that didn't get their debts paid? Just something to think about.
Ken, I appreciate your voicemail. You know, all that stuff's, I don't think it's too connected, right? Like when the XFL, went bankrupt, they owed money to a lot of people. Obviously bankruptcy court, for the XFL, people got, they're getting like fractions of dollars that they were owed and whatever. I think the original listener, Seth, and I were kind of digging into this a couple weeks ago when we were trying to trace the trademark lineage. I think the original USFL was actually like, the trademarks were owned by like a nonprofit. I mean, don't quote me on that, but generally you would have like an LLC or whatever, right? Like even nowadays, Fox, was the NSFL, and then they changed to the USFL LLC. Same thing like with the Spring League, right? The Spring League is its own LLC that owed that money to Indianapolis for the unpaid hotel rooms. Brian Woods can just close shop on that. That's one of the benefits to having an LLC, right? Is being able to kind of walk away from that and not have the debt attached. So, right. So like Steve Earhart and the guys back in the 80s, you can lose that money. If we're trying to sue for stuff nowadays, it's not connected. I mean, I know that's weird, and like, well, okay, well, we're maintaining the legacy and the lineage of the trademark, but then we went bankrupt, and then it's just how bankruptcy works. I mean, it's not an ideal thing. The USFL got like $5.5 million. I was looking into this the other day too for court fees and stuff. When they sued, they got the dollar that was tripled because of the court procedures, and then they got like $5.5 million they were paying to the lawyers and all that stuff. But that that 163 that was lost, that's money that's lost. I mean, that's how business works, and that's how bankruptcy works and all that. So any new lawsuit nowadays trying to get money back from Fox isn't going to be connected to that. And you can argue or not agree with that as much as we would like, but I at least my understanding of how bankruptcy works and funds and things like that, that would be my takeaway from that. I'm sure I've said something wrong in the last 2 minutes, so if you would like to comment, you or anybody else on the YouTube, I would be happy to continue this discussion on there. But Ken, I do appreciate your voicemail. I appreciate you taking the time to call in. Like I said before, if you have any questions at all, any voicemails, any comments, any critiques, any criticisms, anything else, the markcast.com/voicemail. The link is at the bottom of every episode. Thanks. Thanks again to Solomon and Andrew, and also Jason and Tim for taking the time out today. I really appreciate everyone hopping on. Lots of emails and phone calls and coordinating with all these people. We're all doing this for love and passion. So I really appreciate all of them for coming on. And I certainly appreciate all of you for watching and checking out the show. Big show next week. As I said at the top of the program, Farhan is going to be coming back on. Farhan was going to be on a couple weeks ago, had to go cover the combines. Really curious, I want to get Farhan's thoughts on the CFL, this whole genius sports and the 4 downs. But then also I had originally wanted to get Farhan on to talk about the USFL. I thought that was a good spot for Naylor, right? When Dave Naylor was on a few weeks back. Really curious to see Farhan's thoughts as well about that. So that'll be good. I have some more interviews lined up as well. I have a good CFL interview that had to reschedule from this week to next week. So look forward to that. Again, we like and subscribe, trying to hit 2,000. We're closing in at that 1,900 mark. Before we go to Birmingham, would love to hit that 2K. Again, we're going to be having our live show April 16th out there. So like and subscribe, all podcast feeds, kind of all that stuff, help grow the momentum here as we head into the USFL launch. As always, really appreciate your time. If you ever have a voicemail, the markcast.com/voicemail. You can also leave us a review, the markcast.com/review. If you have any comments, you can always, DM me. You can leave an email through the website. Lots of different ways to get in touch. So really appreciate everyone's time, and hope you all have a great weekend. Thanks, and take care.